my stuff ready here. Where did it go? Okay. When they asked me to do the keynote, I went through a number of feelings. I first was very excited. Then I was kind of humbled and confused. Then I was terrified because, as you saw, Andrew is now dead. But then I was kind of even more terrified about, like, okay, usually when you talk at conferences and stuff, it's all prearranged and you have a topic, you do your research, you get it all figured out. This one, they weren't feeding me anything. So I was like, oh, well, what do I talk about? And so I wasn't quite sure how to progress. So I thought, well, maybe I could try and, because since we're all trying to figure out what is a bastard film, I thought, well, maybe I could try a way of contextualizing it in some sort of an analogy so that I could make it clear. And to me, when I think of what is a bastard film, I kind of think of the one kid sitting alone at the lunch table and all the other kids don't want to go near him, like kind of like the loser. People don't understand, they don't appreciate. And to me, that's kind of what I think a bastard film is like. And so that was sort of the angle that I'm going to proceed with. And I thought, perfect, losers. I understand them, I know them, I am one, have been my whole life. And so that, if you will indulge me, is what I'm about to talk about. So I have some slides here to illustrate my point. Okay. The worst part about this, actually, I've learned, is having to hold the microphone. So this is 1969. My family, we were extremely poor. If you notice in this region right here, these are excellent. Okay. All right, thank you, Tom. So, yeah, so this, to me, this is the first picture of a loser. The high water pants, and it's hard to tell, but if you can see over here, you can see that these were hemmed at one point. So I had been wearing those pants for many years. I should note that all of the clothes that I was wearing were like church hand-me-downs because we were so poor. But if you notice the fingers in the pockets, I was trying to be cool. I really was trying to be cool because that's really what I wanted. So then I started thinking, okay, I'm not cool because clearly I was not cool. The kids at school did not like me. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try to assimilate myself into the group some other way. So I started with art. So this was a drawing I brought home in second grade where I wrote Smoky Weagle Drugs. Over here I'm assuming is the smoke. And I've been trying to figure this out, but this kind of to me looks like stairs and safety cones, like don't fall down the stairs after you smoke the illegal drugs. So, it was becoming very clear to me that there was a song on Sesame Street when I was a little kid, one of these things is not like the others. It was starting to become very clear to me that I was not like my peers. So I thought, okay, the next step of assimilating myself into the cool kids population, sports. I thought, okay, I'll play sports. So this is a picture of me playing baseball, and it's hard to see, but I had gotten a hit because I'm on first base. I blew it up so you can see. what was really happening. And again, we're going to go to the close. If you look right here, you're going to notice, I don't know how much of you know about baseball, but there's a traditional uniform you wear, where you have white socks, and then you have these stretchy stirrup socks that you pull over the top. I didn't own any white socks, so I had to wear brown socks. And I didn't have like a new shiny glove like the rest of the kids, so I actually used my grandfather's glove from 1910. So this would have been very early 70s, and I was using a glove from 1910 and my brown socks. It still was not working out for me. The kids were not coming on board and welcoming me into their sleepovers in their houses. So I started thinking, well, okay, I think I know what the problem might be. I mean, I'm living with my mom and my sister. I don't really have a good, like, male role model in my life. My grandfather was good, but he lived a couple of cities away, so I didn't get to see him that often. So I needed a good male role model. So I'll leave this up for a little bit. So there were some kids that lived down the street that had a band. It was Jeff and Jerry Hapgood. And then in the summers, these other brothers would come in, Kevin and Merle Allen, and they had a real band called Malpractice, and they were playing in New York City, and they would come in on the summers and they would tell me all about the bands in New York, and that was kind of how I got into the punk scene, was because I learned about, like, they were like, oh yeah, we played with this band, the Ramones, and we played with these bands. The first record I remember buying was an album by a band called the Tough Darts, who were out of New York, and I was really like, this is it. This might be my calling, is this music thing. And so I hung around, there was the two brothers, and I hung around Kevin the most. So for a couple of years, whenever he was in town, because they actually lived in Vermont, but they had relatives, and so they would come for the summers to New Hampshire, where I grew up. So I would hang around Kevin, and I'd kind of like try to jam when they would let me. And so I started getting into punk rock, and I felt like this was going to be my calling. And I had a couple of friends, they were older, I was feeling cool, so of course we moved to Florida. So, so this was 1978, we moved to Florida. I had an earring at the time, so soon as I started school, I was beat up on a regular basis. There was this thing that probably here, the Future Farmers of America, really big in Florida. They did not take kindly to my little earring. And I wasn't the coolest punk rocker either. So, because I wasn't in LA, I wasn't in New York, so I wasn't able to buy like the cool punk rock stuff. So this is me in 1978, and here we have brown corduroys, and this is a ripped up Honda t-shirt. And over here, we have the closest I thought I had to cool clothing, which was a homemade Sex Pistols t-shirt that I painted using house paint. So it was like as hard as a rock. So tough. Yeah. So and I cut my hair into like a pre-mullet somehow, because I didn't really, I wasn't skilled in that. So I just took the scissors and thought, I am so cool, I'm so punk rock. And of course, I was regularly beaten up. But thankfully, I still had my mentor in New England, Kevin, who he would write me letters and call me regularly and tell me about how the band was doing and stuff. And then at one point he told me that he had changed his name from Kevin to Gigi. And his new band was now called Gigi and the Jabbers. And I was like, well, that's cool, that sounds great. And he was like, I'm really embracing this punk rock and I'm going into it. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. And so he sent me his new album, which was called like Is, Was, Always Shall Be. And I was like, this is really cool. I like this. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to form a band. I think that's really what I need to do, is just form a band. So we formed a little band called the Ill-Bred Youth. Very perfect punk rock name. And we basically didn't write songs, so we just began covering Gigi's songs. So I feel fairly confident in saying that I was the first person in the world to cover Gigi Allen. And so music that, and he was actually trying to help my band put out a single in 1982, because he was on this little record label called Orange Records, and we did a really good cover of this song called Don't Talk to Me. And he was helping us get a single out, but like most bands, we imploded and it never went anywhere. But, I did think that music was the key for me. So I kept playing music for many, many years, went from one band to another, toured, and did all kinds of stuff. And I was actually on a roll there for a while, into the 90s, where not only was I doing the music, but I had this cable television show in LA that was extremely popular. Like, people like Janine Garofalo and Jack Black and Ben Stiller and Seinfeld, they all loved this TV show. So I was on this roll. I had like famous friends. I was touring the world, doing what I thought was my calling. People really liked me. I was in with the cool kids. And then, of course, I fell victim, like most musicians do, to the excesses. I'll give you a little tip. I don't know if it's still this way, but a lot of times you would pull into a club, beer was free, water cost extra. So there was a thing that I like to call the occupational hazard. And this is a picture of me kind of at the height of my downfall, where I was actually on tour with Wayne Kramer. I was playing bass for Wayne Kramer. Second gig of the tour, I broke my wrist. They gave me a prescription for Vicodin, so I sort of developed a regular cocktail each night. This was actually at a club in New York called Life. Some friends of mine in a punk band called the Avengers were playing the next night, so they came out to see us. I was playing with one of my heroes. I fell off a couple of times. I fell off the stage a couple of times during the set. Still wasn't sinking in that maybe I wasn't headed the right way. But then we got back to town. My band kicked me out. I got kicked off the show. The famous friends were no longer taking my calls. I was homeless. I had no money. I was a loser. Like, I was right back to where I was when I was the little kid at the lunch table and nobody talking to me. So I wasn't sure what to do. So I guess I can just leave this up because I have no more visuals. The rip shirt? So, I was sitting there, doing a lot of self-introspective thinking. I was like, my male role model had led me astray. Gigi, he didn't pan out the way I had really hoped. He didn't do so well himself. So I thought, okay, I need a change. I really need a change. So I thought, okay, I've always been interested in this film preservation thing. So, and I had been following it for a number of, I really had. I had been following it for years, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out how do I infiltrate this group of cool kids. And so I was constantly going to screenings and talking to Bob Gitt and Jerry Goulden at UCLA, like, what do I need to do? How do I have to do this? And they were telling me, oh, there's this program that's in development at UCLA. It's a master's program. And I was like, I've never really gone to college. So, okay, yeah, why not? I'll make it a goal. So I sobered up, started college, and like almost immediately got a job at UCLA and actually at USC Archive as well. So I kept on my path, and ultimately I went through the MIS program. While I was in the MIS program in UCLA, the loser side of me reared its ugly head again when a professor flunked me and tried to get me kicked out of UCLA. And then I was devoting all of my time to UCLA, and I was like, I'm going to be a preservationist one day, man. It's going to be awesome. 7 years later, I woke up and said, I'm never going to be a preservationist at UCLA. I've got to rethink this whole path I was on. And so I switched over to USC to run the archive over at USC. There were a number of reasons why I switched. One was after 7 years and all of the stuff I had done at UCLA, the salaries for UC people are online, so you can look it up and sort of see where you stand. And so I noticed that I was tied for last with a guy who had wrecked the van 3 times. So I was thinking, you know what? I'm kind of the loser at UCLA, so maybe I should move on again. So I went over to USC, and the funniest thing is, like, when I moved over to USC, it was like everything turned around, where even the people at UCLA started looking at me differently, and things for conferences that I had been submitting year after year after year and being declined, all of a sudden got accepted, and I was able to start talking about things. And so to pull this all the way back to the Bastards, and what I started was, like, I started thinking about these losers and these bastard films, and really the difference is the context. I think when they came out, maybe they had that brief moment of celebrity like I did in the 90s, and then they went back to being a loser simply because the context changed. The film is still the same, but, like, here in this group of people watching these movies, there are, like, blockbuster bastards, you know? Like, the Enema Medley is what I would call a blockbuster bastard. And it made me think, like, okay, losers can be winners in the right context. And that's kind of what I think about here with these films is we're sometimes just acknowledging things and seeing them in a different light can make them a winner. And so me just changing my context made me feel like a winner, whether I was or not. It made me feel that way. And I think that's what, to me, like, the Bastards represents, is sort of, we are all kind of like celebrating these things that are the losers, but to us, we think they're really cool. And, like, even my story, growing up, it was terrible. But I tell people things like, oh yeah, pretty much my male role model was Gigi Allen, you know, and they're like, that's awesome, man. That's so cool. And it's like, no, it really wasn't, but, you know, I'm glad, I'll take it in, you know, I'll take the praise. So the next thing that I wanted to do was just basically sort of do a visual component of showing that any piece of shit film in the right context could be an installation work of art. So that's what we're going to do here with the projectors. Again, I feel very confident about the loser inside me. That a couple of days ago we did this, worked fine. Did it earlier today, worked beautifully. So it's probably going to fail. So just keep that in mind, and just know that you guys will drink some more, and then we'll do the punk rock thing. And then I'll be okay. I'll be one of the cool kids again. Thanks.